Yeah. Alrighty, so let's get started. There's a lot that I'm going to cover in this webinar. There's going to be some great videos. There's going to be some tools that you're going to be able to take away. So there's a lot in it, and I really want to make sure that we get through it. I'm going to be answering any chats that might be, any comments that are in the chat along the way. Please share any thoughts and opinions that you have around what I'm sharing, what you like, or any questions you might have, or how it might be, some of the tools and strategies might be applied in other ways. So one of the things that we all love to do is be able to take over our brain and hack our brain, override some of the things that happen so that we can use stress to our advantage. So I'm going to show you some really cool tips and tricks in terms of how to apply this. Firstly, what's really important to me when sharing any kind of presentation is to acknowledge the country that we're sitting on. Now, I know I'm meeting with you in a digital space, but we're all sitting on someone's country. I'm sitting on Aranda country in the Northern Territory, and so I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners, past, present, and emerging, for the country that I'm sitting on. And I'm actually coming to you from Mbantua country, which is the other name for Alice Springs in the Northern Territory. And so, I work from home. This is me in the backyard with my adopted dog. She was a shelter dog. And I discovered later in life that she is also part dingo. But she is a fabulous stress management tool for me, sometimes even a source of stress. She normally sits over here behind me. And because when I'm doing webinars like this, she'll be barking at the door or scratching at the door. So that's where I'm from. I'd love to hear from anybody who's on the live chat, on the live call with me now. If you want to pop in the chat where you are as well, that's really good to see where everyone's coming from. It's always fun to do that when we've got people from everywhere. It's always fun to see where they've come from. So what I'm going to share with you today, what I want to share with you is some things to think about in terms of your resilience. So there's a lot of things that can impact upon us. And we certainly, when we talk about stress management, there's 6 key areas that we see that impact. And I want you to just bear this in mind as we go through the training. So people will come to me to manage their time, for example, but unless they can get their stress under control, they're not going to be able to manage their time. And part of being able to manage your stress is also being able to manage your well-being, getting a good night's sleep, and we're going to talk about that. And also things about like being able to communicate, to be able to ask questions that you need to ask, to be able to assert yourself in a way that's professional and emotionally intelligent. So all of these things impact upon each other. So just give some thought to some of those key areas that will that can impact upon your stress, and there may be other areas you need to work on as well. And this is what we see when people are in a stress state. This is a sort of way that people tend to define how they're feeling. Overwhelmed, overworked, and over this are the top 3. So when you're in a really, really stressed state, it can be triggered by overwhelm. It can be triggered by too much work and not enough time to be able to deal with it. And this can all lead to feeling like you're on an emotional roller coaster. Sometimes you feel on top of it and you feel good, and sometimes you feel exhausted, drained, depressed, uninspired, and unmotivated. What can happen, particularly in a workplace, but not just in a workplace, is that you feel like an imposter. That means you're promising to be something to someone, to other people, but you're letting them down. So it can be in the work environment, but it can also be in a personal life as well. You're wanting to be the best mother, the best partner, the best daughter, and you're falling short for whatever reason. Then you obviously feel negligent and you feel off course. You just feel off track. So applying some of these strategies are just going to help alleviate it. Now, of course, we've only got an hour together, so it's only going to be a few quick tips and tricks that you can apply. But this is what the things that we want to address. And I want you to think about where this might manifest for you in your life. The goal is to move to the other side. You want to feel valued. You want to feel that you have solutions to be able to manage in the moment, to be able to adapt and roll with the punches and do what's needed and expected of you. And when you can do that, you have rocket-fueled motivation. You feel inspired to have relationships, to do the work that you're doing, and you will feel that you can make the strategic choices you need to make. You know what choices you need to make for yourself to be able to take you in the direction you want to go, whether it be your professional life or your personal life. You can be far more strategic when you're able to manage that stress in your world. And consequently, you become a trailblazer. And this is what's really interesting about leadership. A lot of people say, oh, I'm not a CEO and I'm not a manager, I'm just me. You will always be a leader. There will always be someone looking to you for advice or direction. So when you start to manage your stress and can control that environment, people will say things to you like, wow, how are you so organized? How do you have it under control? How are you so calm despite the chaos around you? I really want that for you. So when you have those things in control, then people look to you and you become the trailblazer. And of course, you're going to feel a lot more certain and a lot more confident. So this is what we want to work towards in building a more resilient you in the way that you operate. I'm going to look at some of the strategies around that. So talking about the brain, what we now know, there is so much research out there, and it's absolutely fascinating, is that we can control our hormonal responses in our body simply by the way we think. And the human species is very unique in that way. In terms of how our brain has been developed, there's so much out there about this now. One of my favorite TED Talks is one by a lady by the name of Kelly McGonigal. She does this TED Talk about how to make stress your friend. It's phenomenal. It's one of TED's most popular TED Talks. And she cites some of the research in that about the impact that changing the way you think can change the way that your body responds, the hormonal response in your body. So if you can simply start to change the way that you think about stress, you will actually get a physical response. You will change the way that your body's responding. And we don't have time to go through all of that research and that evidence now, but I just wanted to plant that seed within your mind to demonstrate to you that thought power is incredibly powerful in terms of hacking your brain. And that's what we're going to look at today. As I mentioned before, in terms of well-being, sleep is fundamental to brain power. So if you want your engine to run really well, you've got to allow it to be serviced and respected and maintained and have cool down time. So it's the simplest way of resetting the brain. Sleep is so powerful. And of course, when you're stressed, it can sometimes be difficult to sleep. So we're going to look at some of the things that you can do to improve the quality of your sleep. Again, a really big topic. I'm just going to give you a few tips and tricks that are going to help you with that. Your brain files information and cleans itself out when you sleep. And this is really important. Do you know, when I do workplace mediation, some of the work that I'll do with people, and psychologists have taught me this, is to give people some things to contemplate and think about and then sleep on it, because your brain is able to decompress and clean out some of those thoughts and have a subconscious process of dealing with a lot of the things that go on. So sleep is really, really important to support that process. While you sleep, your brain will delete the nerve connections you don't use. So it's really like a defragmentation of your brain if it were a computer. And there's a lot of research to show how resting and sleeping can support your development, and it support you to concentrate and to work more cohesively. And sleep can, we all know if we haven't had enough sleep, how cranky and grumpy we can be. I know if I don't get enough sleep, I can get anxious and nervous. It impacts upon me in that way with my well-being. But a nap of even 10 minutes improves thinking and vigor. In places like Google and some of those big trendy digital spaces in the US have like napping pods. It's why the siesta is really, really popular in Spain in terms of the impact that it makes on people's productivity. So maybe we should introduce more siestas into our work environment. I'm going to play for you a little video now. If for any reason you can't hear it, should work for me, but if it doesn't, just pop it in the chat or let me know. But I think I've set everything up okay. I'm just going to play for you a short video about what happens to your brain and your body if you don't get enough sleep. This is a really, really powerful video. So you can't hear that? Is that what, someone want to open up their mic? You're not hearing that video? Judy, you can't hear it?
Sorry, no, I can't hear it. I can read the text though.
No, we want to hear, I want you to hear it. So let me just start again.
Yeah, but I can't hear it, Barbara.
Okay, no worries. Let me just, thank you. Thanks for letting me know. So what I'm going to do is just share it again so that it's optimized. There we go. For some reason it didn't have it playing. So let's start again. All right. Can you hear it now? Someone let me know. Oops, sorry, I'm just putting the chat on.
My name is Matthew Walker.
Cool. Thanks, Judy.
I am a professor of neuroscience and psychology at the University of California, Berkeley, and I am the author of the book, Why We Sleep. We certainly know that a lack of sleep will actually prevent your brain from being able to initially make new memories. So it's almost as though without sleep, the memory inbox of the brain shuts down and you can't commit new experiences to memory. So those new incoming informational emails are just bounced and you end up feeling as though you're amnesic. You can't essentially make and create those new memories. We also know that a lack of sleep will lead to an increased development of a toxic protein in the brain that is called beta amyloid, and that is associated with Alzheimer's disease because it is during deep sleep at night when a sewage system within the brain actually kicks into high gear and it starts to wash away this toxic protein, beta amyloid. So if you're not getting enough sleep each and every night, more of that Alzheimer's related protein will build up. The more protein that builds up, the greater your risk of going on to develop dementia in later life. What are the effects of sleep deprivation on the body? Well, there are many different effects. Firstly, we know that sleep deprivation affects the reproductive system. We know that men who are sleeping just 5 to 6 hours a night have a level of testosterone which is that of someone 10 years their senior. So a lack of sleep will age you by almost a decade in terms of that aspect of virility and wellness. We also know that a lack of sleep impacts your immune system. So after just one night of 4 to 5 hours of sleep, there is a 70% reduction in critical anti-cancer fighting immune cells called natural killer cells. And that's the reason that we know that short sleep duration predicts your risk for developing numerous forms of cancer. And that list currently includes cancer of the bowel, cancer of the prostate, as well as cancer of the breast. In fact, the link between a lack of sleep and cancer is now so strong that recently the World Health Organization decided to classify any form of nighttime shift work as a probable carcinogen. So in other words, jobs that may induce cancer because of a disruption of your sleep-wake rhythms. We also know that a lack of sleep impacts your cardiovascular system, because it is during deep sleep at night that you receive this most wonderful form of effectively blood pressure medication. Your heart rate drops, your blood pressure goes down. If you're not getting sufficient sleep, you're not getting that reboot of the cardiovascular system. So your blood pressure rises. You have, if you're getting 6 hours of sleep or less, a 200% increased risk of having a fatal heart attack or a stroke in your lifetime. There is a global experiment that is performed on 1.6 billion people twice a year, and it's called daylight savings time. And we know that in the spring, when we lose 1 hour of sleep, we see a subsequent 24% increase in heart attacks the following day. Another question perhaps is, what is the recycle rate of a human being? How long can we actually last without sleep before we start to see declines in your brain function or even impairments within your body? And the answer seems to be about 16 hours of wakefulness. Once you get past 16 hours of being awake, that's when we start to see mental deterioration and physiological deterioration in the body. We know that after you've been awake for 19 or 20 hours, your mental capacity is so impaired that you would be as deficient as someone who is legally drunk behind the wheel of a car. So if you were to ask me what is the recycle rate of a human being, it does seem to be about 16 hours, and we need about 8 hours of sleep to repair the damage of wakefulness. Wakefulness essentially is low-level brain damage.
So lots of really powerful information in that video, isn't there? There's so much research in terms of, and Matt's an amazing speaker. He does an incredible TED Talk. So if you enjoyed that video and you want to find out more, you can find the TED Talk that he's done. And he's also written some great books on it. But I just love the amount of research that he cites in terms of the long-term impacts. And a lot of things I hadn't heard, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of things that I hadn't heard about the impact that sleep has long-term on our well-being and how much it can contribute to some of those chronic diseases. I think what's really interesting as well in terms of the sleep, how our sleep is impacted is the memory loss and being able to concentrate. There's what we know about burnout is that with burnout, a classic sign of burnout is not being able to concentrate and retain information. So again, there's a great episode on the Insight program on SBS that was recorded, I think, in 2014. Be interesting to see what it's like now after COVID, but there were people from a variety of industries talking about burnout and what they experienced, and sleep was obviously impacted, but their ability to concentrate was a huge one. So that's the one that stands out for me in terms of sleep management and the impact that it has. Looking at men's testosterone as well is one that's really, really interesting, and we can see how the issues that people have around reproduction, getting pregnant, all of those things, sleep obviously contributes to that significantly and has a major impact. There's lots of things that sleep impacts on. So we're going to look at, if I just go back, obviously the one that really impacts upon sleep is devices. What's really interesting about sleep is that the exposure to light suppresses your pineal glands. I'm not sure how if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it suppresses the production of melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. Most people have probably heard of melatonin. Now, this is what I find really interesting about melatonin. There are receptors in our eyes, optical receptors, that can determine when there is light or no light. And it's particularly triggered by blue light because we're not a nocturnal species. We're a daytime species. We're designed to hunt and gather during the day. And when the sun goes down, we start to sleep and our body kicks into that sleeping phase. But it's triggered when there is no longer blue light. So having devices in our world and in our environment is putting blue light into our system. And it's really interesting how much blue light can impact upon your sleep if you've got blue light in your bedroom. Now, I've got a charger. This is a charger I've got here that's got this tiny little blue power light on it. And I can't tell you, if I don't cover that up, I've got a separate one in my bedroom as well for my phone, because I use my phone as an alarm. And yes, I like to watch Netflix and things before I go to bed, but I have to cover up that blue light. Otherwise, I have a dreadful sleep. But blue lights are the power on our monitors. So if you've got a TV in your bedroom, some people have blue lights on their alarm clocks. It can be a blue light on the power button on the air conditioner. You would be surprised how much blue light is in your bedroom when you go to sleep, especially in hotels. My God, it drives me nuts. I had a mentor, Dr. John Hinwood, who this company is named after, who was speaking at a conference, and in his hotel room, he went around covering up all of the light that was being emitted in his room. And he found 15 sources. There was the smoke alarm, there was the TV, there was the alarm clock. There were 15 sources of light within the hotel room. So your eyes focus on bright light long after the sun goes down. We're just designed to look for it and look out for it. And so melatonin regulates our sleep cycle. And so if we don't get a good sleep, if we don't kick into at least 7 to 9 hours is what we need, then it's going to impact our well-being and our health. And you're less likely to get that REM sleep. So that's where your brain's deprogramming, is that REM sleep. REM sleep is essential to repair and restore those cells. So a lot of what Matt was talking about in that video before, that REM sleep is essential. And this is why people say if you don't get a good night's sleep, you can make yourself sick. And I know I've felt like that. I'm sure others have felt like that as well. So if we're disrupting the melatonin by the smartphones, it can mess with our hormones and these are hormones that control hunger and can control obesity. Just to give you an idea of some of the ways that can impact upon you if you don't have enough melatonin. Now, on most phones, there is a setting that will put a warm light onto the phone at a certain period of time. So I'd encourage you to find that setting on your phone if you do want to have your phone in the bedroom. My mentor used to refuse. He used to have one of those old wind-up clocks, you know, the ones with a little wind-up, the alarm clocks, the old-fashioned mechanical clocks. So if you do want to have your phone in your room, just get rid of that blue light because it has such an impact on your brain. Melatonin typically also takes 2 hours to be produced. So bear that in mind as well. You want to start to slow down at least 2 hours before you're planning on going to sleep. So for me, I like to go to sleep by about 10:30 at night, each night. I have an alarm on my phone at 9 o'clock that just says stop. Stop what you're doing, stop working, stop being stimulated so that I can start to wind down and prepare for sleep. The other thing we know is people whose melatonin levels are suppressed and whose body clocks are thrown off by light exposure are more prone to depression as well. So a lot of research out there that shows us how sleep is going to impact on our well-being. A simple hack, just some simple things you can do. Reduce the blue light in your room. Make sure that you allow at least an hour and a half to 2 hours to start to wind down and slow down the stimulation. And yeah, make sure that you can get a good night's sleep in order for your brain to function really well. So that's your first tip and your first hack in terms of being able to control your brain for better sleep, for better concentration and less stress. But this is what we know about stress. Professor Ian Robinson, who is the chair of Psychology Institute of Neuroscience in Dublin, he says some great things about stress. I'm going to share some of those with you. But he says we need stress to function. And if you think about it, there are times when we do need stress to work for us. The goal is to be able to know when to turn it on and turn it off and how to make it work for you. We need to put our bodies into a state of stress when we do exercise. For me to deliver a webinar, to do public speaking, to perform some challenges within the workplace. So sometimes we do need stress to work for us, and it can be an energy that we can harness if we use it the right way. So this is some things to think about. He says channeling stress into a positive energy can radically improve performance and creativity, making you brighter and quicker. So when we put ourselves into that stress state, we can use it to our advantage in moments of creativity and productivity. Now, it is possible to hack the brain and hijack that fight or flight hormone. Cortisol is the hormone that everyone talks about in relation to stress. Cortisol is important for us for survival and functioning, and it stimulates the production of adrenaline, which we need to fight that predator or run from the predator. So it's what can cause problems if we don't regulate it and control it. Now, unfortunately, stress is up to the individual. How we interpret stress is different for everybody. Stress is typically a threat to our well-being, and what threatens our well-being can be different for a lot of people. A classic one is losing your phone or losing your purse or your wallet. I'm not going to die, but it is definitely a threat to my well-being and can put me in a complete state of stress. Sometimes we're not aware of when we're putting ourselves into a stress state, just in terms of the everyday living. The goal is to become more aware of those things, and when we have those triggers and what's causing that stress, what is being a threat to our well-being. And then we can use that very developed part of our brain to override the primal response that is the fight and flight response. We can use it to our advantage. So let's have a look at some of the other tips and tricks in terms of tricking your brain. So this is step one, to trick your brain. So the reason I've got here the picture of the roller coaster is what is really interesting about anxiety is that often the sensation of anxiety and how it presents in our body is not dissimilar to excitement. So some of the hormonal responses and the physical responses within your body are very, very similar. So a roller coaster is a great analogy of that. If I'm on a roller coaster, there are moments where I'm going, wee, this is fun, I'm excited, yay. And then there are moments where I go, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Is this thing safe? Is it secure? How many people survive on this thing? If you've been on a roller coaster, you probably relate, right? You've probably had that experience. So the pendulum between anxiety and excitement, it's swinging from one to the other, but the sensations in the body are still very similar. So we can use that to our advantage. We can actually trick our brain. Now, this is a methodology that was actually developed by a psychologist. It doesn't work for everybody, but for some people, it works really, really well. And I can speak from my own experience. There's there's been times where this has worked really well for me. So if you can identify that you're feeling anxious, if you are saying to yourself, oh, I'm feeling really anxious about this, this is where you start to kind of implode and worry and fret about things and are not sure. And it's quite often things that are going to happen in the future. You can do this. All you have to do is say out loud over and over, I feel excited. You just keep saying it over and over and over. Now, I know that sounds really, really strange. You're going, oh my goodness. And that moment, that's the last thing I'm thinking or feeling. That doesn't feel true. But here's what's really interesting about it. It changes the mindset from a threat to the challenge. Because what happens is if you keep saying over and over in that moment, I feel excited, your brain will actually seek out evidence for why is this true? Why is this true? What's there to be excited about in this situation? And what it can do is shift you from that imploding kind of sensation into just putting your head up and looking around. And what will happen is your subconscious will start to look for the gate where you can leave, the escape door or the opportunity in a situation. So it takes you from a threat into a challenge. It actually transforms you into a state of fear and more into a state of courage. And what the research shows is changing the way you're thinking about stress, like I said earlier, can change your body's response. It actually puts you into a state of courage. So simply changing the language that you're saying. So that's one that you can try. See how you go. It is effective for a lot of people. Doesn't work for everyone, but it's one worth trying because all you're doing is changing your language. Okay, here's trick number 2, controlling your breathing. There is a reason that people will say to you when you're stressed, just breathe, breathe. Breathing is a parasympathetic response. With our autonomic nervous system, what's happening is our body is designed to just do things by default. And breathing is one of those parasympathetic responses where it's slowing us down. There are things that our body does to slow us down. But of course, when we're stressed, the nervous system is hyping up into that fight or flight response. So breathing is one of those things we can actually manipulate and control. So by controlling your breathing, you can control critical part of the brain and you exercise control over the emotional stage you're experiencing. What breathing does is also stimulate the vagus nerve. And there's a lot of research coming out now about the vagus nerve and the response that has to stress. The vagus nerve is this complex stem of the part of the nervous system that goes from our gut up to our brain. And it's kind of this signal between all the vital organs in the brain. So it's connecting with our lungs and our kidneys and the adrenal gland and all of these things that work together in a stress response. So no doubt you've had those experiences where you're really stressed and your brain sort of switches off and it just zeroes in on something. And sometimes you do crazy things in a stress situation. Think afterwards, what was I thinking? What was I doing? So controlled, regulated breathing puts dopamines into your system, which is the feel-good hormones. It slows down the production of cortisol and the adrenaline. It stimulates the vagus nerve. It increases the oxygen that's going to your body and your brain. So I know we all go, yeah, I breathe every day, big deal. But controlled, slow, deep breathing will actually get you into a better stress response quicker. And it's so simple to do. Now, you've probably heard people talk about how when they're really stressed, they'll go and have a cigarette. There's cigarette smokers. Nicotine is actually a stimulant. But what's really interesting about cigarette smoking is it performs 2 important stress functions. People are detaching from the environment, and there's a lot of, that's another subject and tool and strategy again. But number 2, they are doing controlled, regulated breathing. They're by inhaling the nicotine and controlling the breath and the intake of the cigarette, they're doing slow, controlled breathing. It allows, again, people have shown that with the research that it allows you to also improve your concentration and to be able to problem solve and make decisions. So simple, but so powerful. And breathing deeply changes the chemistry in the brain. It's like taking a natural anxiety drug. So what we can do, the easiest thing to do, and I'd love you to do this now if you can, we'll just do a few moments of this. Put your hands on your stomach. If you're sitting down watching this webinar, just put your hands on your belly and imagine that it's a balloon. And I just want you to think low and slow. So you're going to take a few deep breaths, and your challenge is to push your hands out with your breath. So what I want you to do is just breathe slowly in and out, and enough to push your hands out with the breath. Hoping you're breathing with me. I don't know about you, but I feel a lot more relaxed, and I'm in a stress response delivering this webinar to you. So you can probably hear it in my voice. It's dropped down, it's deeper, I'm slower. Just those few moments of breathing has made a difference to my stress response. So it doesn't take much to moderate your breathing to be able to kick you into a better state. All righty. Oh, there's the bells. I was going to do some bells for you to be able to time your breathing, but I'm going to move on to another slide. This is what's really interesting, is that the Navy SEALs use breathing to be able to stay calm in really, really stressful situations. So this is a really, really quick video, but really fascinating. It demonstrates to you the impact that breath can have on your ability to concentrate in difficult situations.
Most people believe that Navy SEALs are just people that are able to handle stress better than other people, like it's an innate ability. But in reality, it's not. It's something that is trained during SEAL training, and as a candidate, if you aren't able to master stress management, you really can't be a Navy SEAL, and it comes out in training. And so the exercise that we use to prepare ourselves for high stress situations, whether that's a training exercise or combat, is a thing called box breathing. You breathe in for 4 seconds, you use your diaphragm to do it, you hold that breath for 4 seconds, then you breathe out on a slow 4 count for another 4 seconds, and then you hold with all the air out of your lungs for 4 seconds. And you repeat that loop 5 or 6 times, and what that does is it turns down your sympathetic reaction, which is the fight or flight reaction, and it turns up your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest, relaxation, peace, and it restores harmony to mind and body. Give it a shot.
He says it's so much better than me. In a short TikTok video, straight to the point, right? But it's Navy SEALs do it to be able to retain their stress response in those situations. So it's so simple, but so effective. All right, the next one that we're going to look at, and this one's quite controversial. There's a lot of for and against on this one, but I like this one, and I know that it works for me, and I'm sure other people have used it to work for them as well. So if you put yourself into a superhero pose before you go into a difficult situation, once again, it's the visual response. So if you can stand in front of a mirror and do this pose, it actually puts you into a more resilient state of mind before you're about to go into a really difficult situation. There's a reason that kids do this. They feel more confident, they feel empowered and brave to take on new experiences, because kids are learning all the time and having new, sometimes scary experiences. So there's a reason that they innately do this. What we know about doing the superhero pose is that it increases testosterone levels. It tricks the brain into feeling more confident. These are all about tricking the brain, these tools. And it triggers the fight or flight. It triggers the fight rather than the flight response. So it's putting you into the fight pose, I guess. It's a bit like the haka as well. It's putting people into that state that prepares them for the battle and to be able to take on the challenges. So if you have to go, where I've heard this working really well is when people are feeling really nervous about going into a boardroom or a negotiation or something where they feel like they might be undermined and it's unpredictable. This gives them a strategy to be able to face the unknown. So it's something worth trying, don't you think? To be able to just go into the toilet, look in the mirror, put your hands on your hips. And if you can't, you can just stand in the toilet cubicle as well before you're about to embrace a really confronting, scary, and difficult situation. Okay, another step that we can do, again, so simple, is squeezing your hand. Now, there is a reason those damn stress balls have become such a popular marketing gimmick and giveaway, because the squeezing, actually, there's research to show that squeezing something can work really effectively as a stress management tool. So what we know is that if you squeeze, it says here, squeeze your right hand. I don't know if right or left is going to make a difference, but if you squeeze your hand shut for 45 seconds, then release it for 15 seconds and squeeze it again, that it is going to give you a sense of control and help you, put you into a courage state. There's a lot of work that psychologists will do as well in terms of tensing the body and then slowly releasing it. It's when you can start to feel that sensation of relaxation. So by putting yourself into a hypertense state and then slowly releasing it, you actually feel the sense of calm and you can release some of the tensions that occur within the body. So we know that when people go into a stress state, it often manifests in tightness in the body. And that only just creates this cycle of stress, physical stress response. So being able to create some of the releases and the tensions can make a huge difference. And doing it with your hand is just a really, really simple way of doing that. You can do that in your pocket. You can do that under a desk. So it's something that you can do, a little trick, a little hack that can make a difference. Now, this increases activity in the left side of the brain to put you in a challenge frame of mind, and it's lessening anxiety and improving performance. So maybe maybe it's that left-right brain thing, where if you do it on the right hand, it triggers the left brain. That may be why that works as well. But it's really interesting, these small things that you can do with the body that can change the hormonal responses, breathing, squeezing your hand. Those simple things can make a significant impact in terms of the change of the hormonal structure in your body. I'm going to show you another really short video in terms of changing the way that you position your body can change the stress response as well. It's really interesting.
Here's another psychological trick that will blow your mind. And it goes like this. If you are distressed, feeling anxiety or negative emotions overall, just do this. Lean back, tilt your eyes slightly backwards, and then your head. And you will instantly feel relief and calmness. This is due to a change of your brain waves and has been practiced in meditation for thousands of years. Pretty nifty trick to have handy, right, when you need it.
This one totally makes sense to me. It explains why in churches, The Sistine Chapel, for example, they have the imagery on the ceiling. So by moving your eyes up, it's actually putting you into a different physical state. And the church may well align that to a spiritual experience as well. It's also looking to God. There's a lot of synergy there in terms of that peace and calm and the correlation to where you're putting your eyes. So something to try as well. Simple tricks you can do with your body that are going to change your response in that moment. And it just might ease things off a little bit and push things back. I'm going to show you another quick video. Obviously, I love these videos because they give you some real burst of value and information. This one is about your approach to relationships. Once again, it's just changing the way you think about things that can change the response to the relationship. So I'm going to show you another quick video, and it's called, well, you'll see the video. It's a simple tool, but the key behind this is being able to let go of expectations. It doesn't always work in every situation, but I can only speak from my own experiences. When I stopped having expectations of other people, that it reduced the stress that I had in the relationship. My grandfather used to say, the great saying that was, what can you expect from a pig but a grunt? So if you feel like someone's being a pig to you, if you're expecting them to be gracious and kind and reciprocating the things that you're doing, then it's a big expectation. If they're a pig, they're going to grunt. So when you can let go and act in a position of kindness and unconditional love, rather than expecting something in return, it takes off the pressure and it can improve relationships. A lot about forgiveness and gratitude and all of those things. And I'm only scratching the surface. But the key to this tip is about being able to let go of some of the expectations you have on others for your own personal well-being and stress management. If you can take control of your own being and act from a place of kindness, it has an incredible behavioral response in others. And again, I'm only scratching the surface, but something to give thought to, and I'm happy to talk to you more about how that works. One of the other things that my mentor taught me, where we can also get stressed, is, and this is where you can change your thinking. All of us had this rubbed into us, didn't we, as kids? A job worth doing is worth doing. You're going to say, well, but no, lousy. This was actually coined by Dr. John T. And my mentor, Dr. John Humewood, was really big on this, is that when we get caught up on doing things perfect and well, we actually don't take action. So finding the opportunity to forgive ourselves and allow ourselves to make some mistakes, to not always seek perfection. Often when I'm coaching clients around time management, we'll look at what things don't have to be perfect. Sometimes done is better than perfect. Sometimes just getting things done and not worrying about the standard of them can actually reduce stress. I know as a new mum, it's often drilled into us as new mums to forget about the housework, forget about the quality of the standard of your home, forget about having all the washing perfectly done, folded and put away. Let some of those standards go when there's a lot more pressures on in your world. So just something to think about as well in terms of letting go of the perfectionism. What things can you drop the standards of around you? Simple trick that you can do to be able to reduce the stress. We also know that research shows us that one of the common traits that exist for those that are resilient is being comfortable with asking for help. The key is knowing when to ask for help and who you can ask for help, but being comfortable with it is where you need to start. There was an article that was published in the Time magazine called The Importance of Resilience, and looking at why some children bounce back from adversity better than others. And the article focused on children whose parents were alcoholics, and the facilitators who were involved in the research were facilitators at the Betty Ford Clinic in California and Texas. And they found 2 areas that were needed for the children to engage so they could develop their skills in resilience. Number 1 was they were very good at being their own recruiter. They knew how to recruit help around them. And what the research showed is that the kids that developed strong resilience skills had a way of drawing people in to help them. And those that were better at being able to ask for help were able to improve on their resilience. The other thing that was really strong was that they were helping others. Once again, Kelly McGonigal talks about this in her TED Talk, how those that engage with others and engage with the community and help others have a longer life expectancy and better health outcomes. So the more that you engage with others and connect with others, the stronger, the more resilient you'll be and the healthier you'll be. In fact, one of the hormones gets produced when we are in a stress state is oxytocin. And oxytocin, it repairs the damaged heart cells that are damaged through stress. It also primes us to reach out and connect with people. Oxytocin is produced when we kiss, cuddle, have sex. It's produced when we play with pets. It's the hormone that is used to induce labor, because it's the hormone also that creates a mother to connect with a baby. So reaching out and connecting with others is really important in order for you to be resilient. A simple trick that you can apply in those moments of stress. So just to finish off, one last video to finish off, just 5 habits that you can develop to increase your emotional resilience. I'm going to open up the questions shortly, but what I want you to do, if you've got a pen handy, I want you to start to write some things down. So if you've got a pen and paper handy, here's some things that you can do, some extra resources that you can use if you want to support you after this webinar. One of the things that you can do is take a quiz. We've got a free quiz that you can do. It's called the Resilient Leader Scorecard. So write down that URL and go and take the scorecard. It will ask, you'll be asked some simple questions. There's 25 questions, and at the end of it, you'll get a customized report. So it'll rate you against 5 key principles of resilience, and it will give you some solutions some things to think about. You can also book a strategy session with me. Once again, there is no hard sell. There is no cost to you. So if you do the scorecard, for example, I can give you some feedback on your score. Otherwise, if you want to look at some other strategies that are going to support you as you go through, as you're wanting to manage your stress, and some strategies you can take on board, you're more than welcome to connect with me. So you can find me through the website. Otherwise, there's my mobile number. Just send me a text or give me a call and we'll book one in so that we can help you. My goal is to give value and to make an impact for you. Otherwise, there are some courses that I have online. We are constantly developing some short courses. If you go to my website, I think you can get one of them for free on my website. I think, I'm not 100% sure. But look, they range anywhere from $29 up to $497. So there's a range of things there. Again, expanding on some of the stuff we talked about today. So whether it's about confidence, whether it's about having focus and feeling motivated and inspired to take action. And lastly, we are developing a 12-month program, and there's a lot in this program that we cover where we really dig deep on a lot of this stuff. Rather than scratching the surface and just giving you tips and tools, we actually look at strategies to put out fires, to prevent the fires occurring, and then propel you into action. So we cover all of those 6 areas a lot deeper, and it involves group coaching, self-directed online learning, mastermind groups, quarterly online conferences. And once we get through all of this COVID stuff, we do want to include an optional retreat as well. So if you want any information about that program, of course, reach out and let me know. Okay, so I want you to write down these 4 words: start, stop, change, and continue. Now, if you want things to be different, then you have to start doing some things differently. So I want you to write down one thing that you're going to start, one thing you're going to stop, one thing you're going to change, one thing you're going to continue based on everything I've covered in this webinar. I jammed a lot in this hour. So hopefully you've written down those 4 words, and I want to hear from you what it is that you're going to do. I'm going to stop the slides in a minute and see if there's any questions from anyone. If you want to pop something in the chat, or if you want to open up your microphone. Just in finishing up as well, you can reach out to me in any way you like. I've given you my mobile number. You've got my email address, but you can also connect with me through social media. And I'm always putting out content, little tips and tricks that you can watch, read, and look at as well. But if you have any questions, now's the time to ask me questions based on anything that I've shared with you or how you might apply. You're welcome to drop it in the chat or open up the mic. I'm going to stop sharing my camera now. And if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to ask. I'd love to hear from you. Anything you're going to start, stop, change, or continue as well. No worries, Andrew. Andrew has to go, so thanks, Andrew. Appreciate you hanging out with me for the hour. If you want to come back to me afterwards, you can. And there'll be a lot of people that are watching this and recording as well, so you are welcome to reach out to me privately through email or social media in any way you want. Hopefully you got down those resources. I will be sharing this recording via email as well, so you can watch it again. Does anyone have any questions? All right, Thank you for spending the time with me. I will be doing more webinars like this on different topics. Obviously, we focused on stress. Vicky, you can share the recording with your team. Be my guest. It's a free webinar. It's open to anyone. So when I share the recording with you, it'll probably be on YouTube. So you'll be able to share it with the team. Yeah, no problem at all. And they can ask me questions too. All righty. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me. Thank you for those that are watching the recording. And I look forward to hearing from you whether which tools you applied, which ones worked for you, which ones you liked. It's always lovely to hear when people have been able to implement them and which ones worked. I've shared with you the ones that worked for me, so I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Take care.